Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peach.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
Well, a little bit of, I guess, an appetizer for something a little project we're going to do later on, more on JFK. But this could be one of the reasons why he was assassinated. Again, we're kind of going back to the UFO ology, a piece of this. A memo that he sent to NASA may have been the end of JFK. Let's dive in.
All right, well, this is going to be interesting. I've not seen this video as usual, so my reactions will be unbiased. Here we go.
A declassified memo from President Kennedy demands that the CIA share its UFO intelligence with NASA.
This letter is dated 10 days before the assassination. Is there a connection?
Could the explosive letter help solve one of the most shocking murders in history?
I mean, this document is absolutely sensational.
Were Kennedy's probes with the CIA about UFOs cause for alarm or even possibly assassination?
We shall see. I mean, that's definitely an explosive, claim. And as we get into more of this a little bit, it'll make a little bit more sense. But again, this is kind of that time of year when we're kind of getting at least I've actually listened to all the Kennedy tapes. It's really interesting. I kind of am a nerd that way. As I listen to like Nixon tapes. Like you can listen to this stuff in the different presidential libraries. Some of it's redacted, some of it's edited. But
Where do you find them on YouTube?
Yeah, they're on YouTube, but there's also the websites you can just listen to because you can't really. It's not like a video, so
Okay.
YouTube. There are clips of the Kennedy tapes, of which there are a lot. None of them touch on the secret files or anything like that here, but more of that, like listening to the Cuban Missile Crisis is really interesting to listen to.
Interesting. And it's kind of funny though that, and I know we've mentioned in a different video that, we live obviously in the internet age. And so information is leaked more readily now, whether, governments like it or not. And if the premise of this video is accurate, which again, I've not seen this video, like how widespread were they afraid it was going to be with JFK's letter? It'd be interesting.
Yeah, and again, as you're going to see kind of where he wanted to go with it, you can understand maybe why the CIA, the military industrial complex, didn't want to go there.
All right, here we go.
November 22nd, 1963, 12:30 p.m. Shots ring out across Dealey Plaza in Dallas, ending the life of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy and sending a nation into mourning.
The JFK assassination is one of the most controversial and polarizing cases in American history. It's a decades-old question. Who killed JFK and why?
The President of the United States is dead.
He's
Over
dead,
the last
Jim.
50 years, there have been numerous theories about Kennedy's death.
He's dead,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's pretty much all I got to say. Yeah, and that's the thing is like this is still even to this day it crosses generations. Like of course, 9/11 to an extent, but I think even the JFK assassination is even bigger than that, just because of the conspiracy theories behind it and the believability of some of the conspiracy theories behind it. And so again, I do like the question who did shoot. To me, I don't want to get into too much because I'm going to spoil too much for maybe a later episode. I'm not a believer in the lone wolf idea that Lee Harvey Oswald did this shit all by himself. Let's just say that.
And you've seen that there was a TV show that was based on a Stephen King novel called, I think, 1963. And
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, there's a mini series. I want to say that it was on Hulu, but it was based on Stephen King's novel called 1963. And gosh, don't even quote me. They did say 1963, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay. And it was based on, kind of like the behind the scenes life of Lee Harvey. I mean, obviously it's fictionalized, but yeah, it's interesting.
It is.
All right, we'll go on here.
All right.
David Marwell headed a review of classified records relating to the assassination.
No, it's like
After
they have
the
people looking at
assassination,
documents in
there
the
were
dark.
a number of official inquiries that were charged with determining exactly what happened to the
You
president.
can't read anything.
In 1964, the Warren Commission, the official government investigation into Kennedy's assassination, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was responsible for the president's death. But many believe there are numerous inconsistencies with the lone gunman theory.
I
It was a
just
crime
fucking
that was
said that.
witnessed by hundreds of people, and it's only natural that their observations would differ.
Many people believe that JFK had made powerful enemies, even the CIA, and that they were responsible for his assassination.
Conspiracy theories linking the CIA to Kennedy's
Fire.
death are well documented. But in 2010, a sensational declassified government memo emerged that some thought provided new possible motives for the agency's involvement in the assassination. A document written by JFK himself.
10 days before JFK was assassinated, he had drafted a letter to the CIA requesting all UFO documents to be released to him.
In the letter, the president also orders the agency to share their secret UFO files with NASA.
It says to the CIA, you will share this information about these unknowns, which means UFOs. You share this so that NASA's mission directors will be assisted in undertaking their defensive responsibilities.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff, right? I mean, if you look at that, again, we've done other videos on some of the stuff, even from the 1940s, the Foo Fighters video, not necessarily the Foo Fighters band, but there's a little bit of that in there too. But the idea that they knew about these unknowns, they don't know what they were, right? So I think the JFK at this particular time was really worried, especially after the Bay of Pigs incident, and then post Cuban Missile Crisis, that the CIA was holding on to too much information about some of these things that were happening, and so I can see why, if it's real, and we do have information, we do have biologics, they call them now, or the evidence of non-human intelligence or UAPs or UFOs in store, that this would be a big threat to those people who are holding on to that information.
Information hoarders, am I right?
They are.
All
They're
right,
assholes.
here we go.
Following the Roswell incident, where an extraterrestrial craft allegedly crashed in New Mexico, the CIA set up a covert group to monitor UFO activity in the U.S. and abroad. Over the following years, it documented and cataloged thousands of sightings.
All of a sudden, they're being requested to give over all those documents to President Kennedy.
I mean, this document is absolutely sensational, because when you start talking about sharing information with other agencies, that's the one thing the CIA never like to do.
Now we have
And
to
it
ask
is even more
questions.
deep than
Were
this.
Kennedy's probes with the CIA about UFOs cause for alarm or even possibly assassination?
This suggestion is unconvincing. But to the CIA, Kennedy's letter may also contain a second, greater threat.
This document also goes on to talk about a program of cooperation with the Soviet Union in space. It essentially instructs the CIA to initiate a data sharing program with the Soviet Union.
The request follows a speech Kennedy gave at the UN, where he even suggests that he will collaborate with the Russians on the biggest prize in space, a manned mission to the moon.
I mean, all the things that he's actually suggesting make sense to do if you think that the topic is real, and it's not, to me, outside of the realm of possibility that those people who were in charge of those secrets then didn't want anything to do with that because of the anti-communist, even today,
Oh yeah,
the
that would
fervor.
not pass any muster today.
No, No, I mean, it probably, again, it was more of a secret thing. I don't think it would have been a part of the election campaign, obviously, in 1964 if Kennedy had survived. You're not going to be talking about cooperating with Soviet Union on UFOs, but on the inside of things, that says a lot to me. And again, you got to look at the people who were in charge back in those days. They're not particularly friendly to Kennedy, never were. So,
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it could be aliens.
An alien conspiracy.
A conspiracy.
All right, keep going here.
In the field of space, there is room for new cooperation.
Kennedy was actually interested in starting up a joint program between the Soviets and the U.S. to combine our efforts to try and get to the lunar surface.
That's smart.
Among these possibilities, a joint expedition to the moon.
Some
And that could
authors
have
and
brought world
historians
peace.
suggest that the CIA was infuriated by Kennedy's repeated attempts to cooperate with America's Cold War enemy.
This is a period of extreme tension between the superpowers. The theory was that he was killed by the CIA, who feared that he was going soft on the Soviet threat.
The revelations in the 2010 JFK memo spark a media frenzy. They appear to provide crucial new evidence for the most controversial murder investigation of the 20th century.
Is the letter a motive? Is this a smoking gun?
Since the letter was discovered, some have claimed it is a fake. Image analyst Mark D'Antonio assesses its authenticity.
That's the last part of it, yeah.
Usually we might expect to see top secret down at the bottom in a big stenciled outline or a stamp. The director's name and the top heading are not in the same place as in his other letters. There are discrepancies, that's true. But that doesn't mean it's a fake.
Right. I think that's kind of at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, those fucking typewriters. I remember, I'm old enough to remember some of those. Things are not easy to fucking type up.
No.
In the exact goddamn format every single time. And it's not like JFK did it himself.
Yeah,
He
it's
had
a
secretary that did it. But it's still, I mean, those things happen. It's not like they could just like do editing, or they have they can check your grammar or anything like that. Actually, people were have a lot more educated back in those times than they are now. It's kind of embarrassing. But if you just look at it on its face, it seems like realistic to me that because the UFO at that point phenomena was well known by the government, and as it had been tracked by Project Blue Book and Grudge and others before that it would make sense for the president to want to try to reach out and especially if the idea is cooperation, trying to get to the moon. Okay, look, we've had these ridiculous really dangerous confrontations in the previous years. Why wouldn't you want to do something like that? But you have the other side of it. There's a lot of war hawks, and if you listen to the reason why I brought up the JFK tapes, if you listen to some of those tapes, if anybody wants to take some of the time to do it, you got to be a nerd a little bit. But you will hear the generals pining for war. They wanted war. They wanted to attack Cuba. They want to invade Cuba, and then they're like, "Screw it! If it's a nuclear war, it's a nuclear war." So it's an interesting topic. Definitely one we want to get into more as far as on the conspiracy theory side of things. The whole JFK assassination. This is a little appetizer.
Well, obviously, we tend to recycle everything, right? So that was during the time to your point, where high levels of secrecy was deemed as super important by the government or agencies of government because of the temperature of the international relations at the time. Obviously more specifically between the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah.
Not that that's changed to this day, but I think what's maybe gone through an evolution over the last, help me do my math, 60 years.
Yeah, 60 plus.
Is there's more curiosity now there's even more curiosity now, and maybe even more of a tendency to cooperate outside of government. Like, because you've got the global community now of scientists, or again, I'm going to use a term that I used in an earlier video, armchair scientists who have access to equipment,
right?
That can reach out to people across the globe, saying, "Hey, let's collab on this. You've got data, I've got data." In fact, isn't that what SETI does? Like they employ like hundreds of people worldwide
Yep.
that do all these
Thousands.
observations.
Yeah.
Thousands, yeah. So
and it's more volunteers than it is.
That's true. It's more volunteers, but
still,
but that's my point. It's like collating all this information that you wish that there weren't all these other conditions that force governments to not cooperate with other. I mean, obviously there's coalitions now, but it would have been interesting if JFK was the president now.
Yeah.
What would it be, right?
Yep. Well, I think in a lot of ways, going back to his assassination, I feel like that was when Americans started to not trust government is because of his assassination. I feel like that really started then. I don't feel like that was that it was then when Eisenhower, Truman, there was a lot of partisan bullshit as there is today. But the conspiracy theorists, and I consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but not really. Like, I mean, I'm pretty eyes wide open on some of the stuff, but the people who just refuse to believe anything else but their own theory, I think started with the JFK assassination, and then Nixon didn't help anything with the kind of shit that he was doing. And then, all the way up now to Trump really taking advantage of that kind of mindset and taking advantage of people. So that's not to say that all conspiracies are false, but because I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest, again, that the JFK assassination was not as clear cut as you might want to get from the Warren Commission. I don't believe, and most Americans then didn't believe it, and most Americans now don't believe it. So I don't think that's ever changed.
Sure. I will be on the home stretch on this video.
Yeah.
David Marwell questions why only one copy of the letter has been provided for investigators.
The document looks like a copy. It looks like a carbon copy. So it begs the question where the original is and also why the top has been redacted. Documents do not exist on their own.
In 2017, the CIA will release thousands of classified files relating to JFK's death. Perhaps they contain the original letter and will shed more light onto who was behind the assassination. Until then, debate will continue to rage about exactly what happened on that fateful day in Dallas in November 1963.
I don't know about that guy. That last, I don't think that really matters if it's a copy or not. To me, if it would have been interesting if they would have come out and said, "Yeah, we've analyzed the signature, and that is JFK's signature." Right? Something like that would have been better, I think, rather than going to that guy with the carbon copy bullshit.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I tend to believe that letter is real, and it makes sense for the time and makes sense for the speech that he had just had before that.
It ties together.
It all lines up, and whether or not that's why he got killed, I don't know of that for sure. But I mean, it could have been a contributing factor if the CIA was involved.
It's tough to not find a correlation for sure, especially if you put both things side by side.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting. Thanks for finding that video. It's interesting, obviously, because our channel, includes many of what that video has: the UFO conspiracy theories,
true crime.
Jeez. All right. Well, that was a trifecta there. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about this little show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe, and on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.